Hi, I'm Bob Ethington.
And I'm Nick Nicholas.
And this is From Akron and Beyond. Welcome to the show, everybody. And we're excited about this particular episode because we have one Miss Jenn Kidd on. She's the director of what I consider to be a real gem of the Akron area, and specifically downtown Akron, and that is the Nightlight Cinema right there on High Street. We'll talk more about location and all that stuff as the show goes on. But it's really a great, very interesting, cool theater. I'm sure a lot of you have been there. If not, you definitely need to go because they're showing the most innovative, interesting films, and it's just the best place to see a movie in town.
And they serve liquor.
And they serve liquor. You might find a drunken Nick Nicholas sitting next to you, which would be a sad sight, to say the least. He talks through the whole movie. He's one of those guys.
I was asked to leave a couple times.
I was going to ask you how you're doing, Nick, but apparently you've hit the bottle already this morning. But anyway, hi, Jen.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Sure, you bet.
You know, it's such a pleasure having you here. It's so cool to have a theater again. You know, how many years since the reincarnation?
Yeah. So the Nightlight opened in 2014, July 2014. So we're coming up on our 10-year anniversary.
Yeah, it's been around longer than you'd think.
Yeah, I remember my late teens, early 20s, man, all the times we spent at the old art theater on Cuyahoga Falls Avenue. I think it's apartments now, but in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s, I saw my Andy Warhol films there and a lot of independent cinema.
Yeah.
Now we have it. We're back.
Yeah.
You're back.
Yeah, in Akron, it's always been kind of a battle. There's always been these theaters that have tried to do this, and it never seems to work. Yeah. I remember the Highland Theater at one time was trying that, and they just couldn't get the audiences. But because of the whole mission of how you guys have approached it, it's working in a whole different way. Now, why don't you start talking about the beginnings of the Nightlight Cinema? Because I was not really involved in it, but I was like one of the early fundraising, supporter people, whatever. And I knew some of the people that were involved in starting it. So, if you could let our audience kind of know where this came from.
Yeah. So it started in the early 2000s. A group of students at the University of Akron started a film festival, Akron Film and Pixel, and it kept growing. And they would do things at the art museum and the library. And eventually they were like, we need a space. So that's how, in 2011, they started taking it more seriously. And in 2014, the doors opened to the Nightlight.
Okay.
And it's interesting. I'm really into archiving things, as you guys are doing here, right? I have an archive that we're digitally creating of all of the early flyers, brochures, passes. I have everything from Akron Film and Pixel from its beginnings.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we're documenting that. And another thing that I want to talk about later is I also have a book of every ads from Akron movie theaters from the 1920s.
Oh, wow.
Newspaper clippings that have every Akron movie theater. And at one point, there were like 25 theaters that, I have Charlie Chaplin ads, like all original.
Yeah.
So this is something, the Nightlight is about connecting cinema and community and really just bringing these films to Akron that wouldn't be here otherwise, right?
Yeah.
So I like to say, like, we show the movies that are nominated for the Oscars before they're nominated.
Right.
We show films from around the world. We show documentaries, like really films that you can talk about that stick with you and that wouldn't show otherwise in Akron.
Right.
Or quite frankly, maybe south of Cleveland. There's just nowhere around that does this.
And it was a nonprofit?
We are a nonprofit.
And you still are.
It's a 501c3 nonprofit.
Okay.
Yeah. We have an awesome board of directors. Donations are tax deductible, I like to say.
Okay, that's great. Say it. Sing it, sister.
But really it is like we've been able to go out in the community like this summer. During COVID, they pivoted. The theater closed down. So they did outdoor screenings at Stan Hewitt, which were amazing. And I was like, why can't we do free community screenings? So we did free showings downtown this summer. And just took
where?
We did one at the Akron Art Museum. We showed The Wiz in partnership with Rubber City Jazz Fest. We did The Fantastic Mr. Fox at the North Side, the parking lot there, True North, across from Jilly's. Jilly handed out free popcorn. She's amazing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then we did, what else do we do? Oh, we chose Dazed and Confused in the parking deck behind the Nightlight.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's
That was based on my high school
Was it?
years. Yeah.
it's a good one.
Still living that dream.
So yeah, but it's really about starting conversations and bringing these experiences. And we actually had a record attendance in 2023
Awesome.
of 16,000 people
Wow.
in a 42-seat theater,
Beautiful.
which really says something.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
The film going experience at the Nightlight is the best. I mean, if you're a film buff, you read about, you'll read about people like Martin Scorsese or whatever, Steven Spielberg, who have their own private screening rooms. And that's kind of what this reminds me
Absolutely.
of, because it's very comfortable. The screen, it holds how many people?
42.
42. Okay, so it's very comfortable. The screen is large. The sound is epic, just like what you'd get at any larger theater. And so it's just really a great film going experience. And as Nick pointed out, they have alcohol.
Also mocktails.
And mocktails, you don't have to drink. And they also have, good popcorn and snacks and stuff. So it really is a terrific place. Now, we're going to keep talking Nightlight, but before the Nightlight, you've been involved in all kinds of things, right?
I was around the music scene for a long time. I've had kind of a windy journey to get here, if you will. So I'll just go in reverse order.
Sure.
I was at Musica for several years.
Okay.
Before this. One of the last shows pre-COVID, I was the one who shut down the theater, or the Musica for COVID.
Wow.
So the last weekend was Brad's birthday party.
Really? You had your birthday party at Musica?
Yeah, it was great.
Nice.
I bought him a 12-pack of Mountain Dew. And we had Brad's birthday party, and then the last show
Brad
was...
on Mountain Dew, look out.
He's not hyper enough. And then was Chris Butler's Akron Music Awards was the final show. Yeah, you were there.
I was
the
there.
last one.
I should have brought it. I had a speech I wrote about supporting Akron music venues, and I had it in my pocket to bring here, but I didn't. But it really, I made the decision the next weekend to close it because we had a sold out showing with 400 people. And I was like, we're not doing it. Like there was no way.
It was getting too risky at that
too
point.
risky. So I was at Musica for a few years before that and worked as sort of a creative director for the Arts District, which is that area, right, where the Nightlight is, but I wasn't affiliated with the Nightlight. But really working to get artists connected with the businesses, and we had a lot of things planned, and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
So I kind of took a break and stayed home, and I don't know. I wasn't sure what I was going to do next, and then
whole world didn't know what they were going to do for like 2 years.
Right, exactly. I just kind of laid low for 6 months and was in a very fortunate position to do that. And then I ended up getting my dream job at the Nightlight as the executive director. So, but before that, I was in the beauty industry for 14 years. I did hair and makeup on film. I did wardrobe in Cleveland for a few big concerts and like the run of Hamilton. And then in the early 2000s, I worked at the Lime Spider with Danny for several years.
Oh, okay.
Really?
Okay. Yeah. So you were there when Lime Spider had bands?
I was there from 2002 to 2000 and right before closing.
Good years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Those were good years.
Yep.
Well, and that's getting off topic, but we're probably going to have Danny on sometime.
Yeah,
I
you
hope.
should.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
But Danny Basone, who owns
the Lockview.
it's Lockview now, and
Yeah.
it's a very, very good restaurant and bar. But yeah, it was the Lime Spider before that, Mr. Bilbo's famously before that, and I don't want to get too off topic, but the Lime Spider, they had a lot of really cool bands over the years. So
Danny brought Jonathan Richmond to Akron.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
He's
Right.
noteworthy.
But okay, so you get the Nightlight job, and I know one of the big goals has been to have a second screen.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that a bit. Okay.
I'd love to. So we have one screen and 42 seats. There's 44 if you count the two in the back corner, like that little nook that I like sitting in. And we're really limited with having one screen, right? There are a lot of movies that we would have shown had we had 2 screens. Like this past year, we would have opened Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, and Barbie had we had the second screen.
Wow.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah. But because of our one screen, there's just a lot of limitations. And, our mission is the independent films and these smaller ones, but our mission is just good films.
Sure.
Period.
Yeah.
Like good cinema.
Yeah.
And there are some bigger ones that really just fall into that category. And we need the ability to be able to show both.
Right.
Like
well,
we're
let me
super
ask you
limited.
this. Major movies like Oppenheimer and Barbie, an independent film, studio like you could get those?
Oh, yeah.
At the
We
same,
work with those distributors, yeah.
So at the same time that it's being shown at
Correct.
Cinema 18 or something, you could show it. Wow.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I went and saw a movie at an unnamed cinema up north, not in Cleveland, south of Cleveland, but it's a big chain. And I went Saturday night to see Ferrari, which we also would have shown, and there were 5 other people in the theater.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at our theater, it would have been packed.
Right.
Man.
So it's interesting how we have this built-in. It makes sense for them to play with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we showed Asteroid City last year.
Right. I
Wes
saw
Anderson's
that there.
movie. We had
Yes.
2,000 people come through in 3 weeks.
Yeah, because when you
Yeah.
talk about the numbers of people that you've had there to see movies, and you think about what the size of that room is, that means that is pretty full all the time. And so you can definitely use an extra screen.
So when you would show Oppenheimer at a 42-seat theater, it would be profitable for you?
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's really amazing, though. I didn't realize that either.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that we can get those titles. And so I pick the films.
But that's a changing industry, right? You
It
might have
is.
had trouble
Well,
with
and
this
this
some
is-
years
5
ago.
years ago.
This is, this is the thing, right? So sadly, certain theaters are closing, which I don't like. Any theaters
Yeah,
closing.
sure.
And I don't
Right.
see anybody as competition. Like we're all,
Yeah.
but we're not. And I think we handpick the films, we follow festivals, like we're paying attention and we really are kind of at the forefront of movies before other people know about them. Like that's our job, but we really put a lot of care into what we show and choose it for reasons. We introduce each film. There's just sort of this passion and care that goes into it from our team. And I think it's just very different than going to a 20 screen. I don't know. It's just a different experience.
Right.
But having, I really wanted to show Barbie. I really wanted to show Barbie. I had like whole plans for it. But again, we're limited with our one screen and I'm so happy with everything we showed.
Yeah.
But what would happen is we wouldn't have to make these choices.
Right.
We
That's
would be able
amazing.
to
Right.
combine our love of, showing a Polish film about a donkey. That sold out last year, or 2022. There was a Polish film called EO about a donkey, and it was from the perspective of a donkey, and it sold out all week. We had people, we had to turn people away.
Wow.
And it was Oscar nominated. And I'm like, if you would have told me that we would have sold out a week showing a movie about a donkey, it was like a wonderful, wonderful film. But there's this, it exists. There's this community that exists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're making me think of that now, and I can't think of the title, so this is going to be about as lame as it gets.
No.
But you reminded me of that Robert Bresson movie that is about the young girl with the donkey. What's that?
I'm going to say it wrong.
Hazard,
Yes, exactly.
The
Yes.
Hazard. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's a. You would never think
Wonderful.
a movie will make you cry. That's has a
Oh my gosh, I cried so hard at this donkey movie.
Yeah.
And my top 10 we all did list of the theater this year, and mine was movies that made me cry at the Nightlight this year. Because I just cry at the movies all the time.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of, our team really cares. Like we have a small dedicated staff who really is passionate about this. Mm-hmm. Similar to the summit where everybody here just loves music so much.
Right.
Like we feel that way about movies and also we just want people to experience it.
Nick always cries at the Nightlight, but that's when they run out of the booze.
Yeah. Well, it used to be the popcorn, now it's the booze. No bourbon. What?
That's not true.
I know how when I was on the board of the Civic Theater, we had scores of volunteers. Do you also have volunteers?
Yes. and I'm trying to figure out as we're in this transition what that's going to look like. So we are doing like off-site events, but really we have a small team who's usually working. There just aren't a ton of volunteer opportunities, but there will be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We appreciate any help we can get, though.
Now, it is interesting. You mentioned that there's always like an introduction before the film. I was wondering, was that part of the nonprofit status that you guys do that? Because it's very unique.
I think it just has always been.
And it's usually just like a few minutes. But it's interesting.
Very short.
Yeah. Just a little background. Here's what's coming up. And it is sort of like a primer, you know?
And then I did, oh boy, I don't know. I can't, before the pandemic. Everything's pre-pandemic or post.
Yeah, before COVID and after
5
COVID,
years ago, 6 years ago, something like that. But a couple times I did sort of a movie. It was almost like a movie club. We did. They knew that whoever got in touch with me knew that I was a big Robert Mitchum fan, and so we did Night of the Hunter, which is one of my favorite movies.
At the library?
No, this was at the Nightlight.
Oh,
and then we did Out of the Past, and I kind of but that was almost more like a movie discussion. You know, I did more in depth. And now, do you guys are you still doing it? Maybe less because you got such.
It was
many
tricky.
people coming from movies now. You don't have time for that kind of stuff.
It's not so much that as the space logistics. Like there are some constraints with that. But we are starting a few things. I'm starting a documentary club.
Okay.
A monthly documentary showing and a conversation.
Yeah.
So we have the Film Society, and what that was repertory films, often followed by a conversation. But what myself and Anthony, my theater manager, what we're doing is just building repertory into our program. So now you'll notice we're showing older films more frequently.
Yeah.
Because I think it's just a part of our mission.
I think it's important too.
Yeah.
You know, that's Nick and I always have a part of every episode called the old fart moment where we talk about how things used to be better back in our day. But when I was like in college and so, there was a thriving film culture and you saw, I mean Marx Brothers movies and Bogart movies, and there was almost like a rebirth of their popularity in the 1970s, right?
Absolutely.
And they don't do that anymore. You know, they all show just the most, action film or whatever if the university is showing anything, and it's not the same. So I think there's definitely a important role for that because memory is such a precious thing, and it's getting smaller and smaller. It's amazing to me to realize what people I know who are very smart and very informed on so many things, and movies that they will never have heard of. For instance, that were to me were like, how can you never have heard of this actor, this actress, or this director? But
you brought back great memories. I remember going to Marx Brothers festivals. And, my friend Larry Polis used to sit through Hercathon marathons of old Hercules movies. He's Greek, just like me.
We do. We do
silent
movie day every year.
Okay,
and it's a national. There's a group that started it, and we do. This year we did all day, like $5 tickets, and we did. We started at 10 a.m. and just went all day showing silent films.
Yeah, that's great.
And we want to do more of that.
Tell us a little bit about your idea for your plans for documentary.
I love documentaries, and so do a lot of other people, and they're real conversation starters.
Shane McGowan, the last Shane McGowan documentary was out of this world.
Yeah, I didn't see that one.
Yeah, Magnolia.
Yeah, but I just want to. There's a lot of people who went to talk about movies after the movies, so I think just like a book club or like something else,
right.
But really just grab a cup of coffee and talk about the film afterwards.
Right.
Yeah, so I do the booking, I choose the films, but it's kind of a collective model with my team because we all have different backgrounds and interests, but we all love cinema from different perspectives, and I think it's important to tell lots of stories.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. I am Bob Ethington. I'm here with my co-host, Nick Nicholas, and this is From Akron and Beyond, and we are talking with Jenn Kidd, the director of Akron's Nightlight Cinema, which is downtown Akron, right there on High Street, right in the middle of where everything's happening, right?
Yeah.
The library.
People always give Akron a bad rap as far as parking, but I've never had a problem. And you're right next to a big deck.
I know.
So that's never a problem with you.
I think about this a lot since the early 2000s because I've worked downtown, forever.
Yeah.
And if we lived in any other city, you would have to, walk 6 blocks or walk 8 blocks. Mm-hmm. So we have street parking frequently, but the library deck is right there.
Yeah.
And it's just, you just cross the street and go over. Like, we're very lucky. I think we have convenient parking.
Yeah, and in the evenings and weekends, that deck is free.
Yeah.
And so, there's parking is not a
And
problem.
the meters are free after 6, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes other times, too, if you can catch them.
Yeah.
I
Little
didn't say
clue
that.
there. So where does the second screen, what's the status of that? Is it just a matter of raising more money or where are you?
I mean, we have quite a bit of money to raise, and lumber's expensive. Things are expensive, it turns out.
Everything's more now, too.
Yeah,
A lot more.
So the overall project is about $1 million for the whole thing, and that's not with gold ceilings. Like, that is not fancy. It is just
Bare bones?
well, it'll be nice.
Yeah.
Like, we don't want to, but the equipment is $100,000 alone.
The electronics.
Yeah, like the projector, the all of it. And this isn't, again, like, it's good. Like, we're not compromising anything, but things are just expensive. So I'm so happy with what we've been able to raise. We just did a Kickstarter that raised $65,000. The community,
Nice.
our community is amazing. Like, people are so supportive, and to me, like, the $10 gifts make just as much of a difference.
Sure, yeah.
Like, I've been the person who can donate $10 and I want to give this organization, you know what I mean? To me, like, all of it matters. And we're kind of all in this together. And it's so wonderful to me that people support this and want this as much as we do.
There's easy ways to do it. I mean, if you've never been to the Nightlight and you go one time, you're going to want to support them, I think.
Absolutely.
And you can even, when you get your ticket, you can add a little money in buying the ticket. I mean, it's very easy. So, yeah.
And every dollar helps. I mean, it just, we're, we've had record attendance, but it also, we pay the studios for the movies too. So it's not like we're like pocketing all this cash, but this project really is, we'll be able to do more community events. We'll be able to host more events, host more conversations. We're looking at having Zoom capabilities built into the theater, so we can do Q&As with filmmakers no matter where they're at in the world.
Nice. Wow.
With the audience, so they can see each other. Like, right after the movie, we'll be able to ping in and be able to have this conversation. So there's like a lot of opportunities to bring people here that haven't happened before.
Yeah, that's very cool. I always say, like, one tiny way to describe the Nightlight is if you're someone who reads like the New York Times or New Yorker magazine, this is the place where you can see the movies that they're writing about.
Exactly.
Right? Where typically before you guys were around, you'd read about it and you'd have to wait for it to start streaming or come out on Blu-ray or whatever. So, you can see them in a theater, which is always the best experience.
We're showing a movie right now that's my favorite film of 2023 called Fallen Leaves, and it also was Time Magazine's #1 film of 2023, and it's from Finland. And it's 80 minutes and just deadpan comedy, kind of comedy, about just these star-crossed lovers, and it's so quirky, but it's my kind of movie. But we are showing, like, everybody's end of year list came out, and I'm like, oh, we've shown that. Like, it just,
And if you look, you guys have a really good website too, I think.
Thank you.
And
We actually just got a grant from Arts Forward through Arts Now to rebuild our website.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and I'm excited because there are a lot of things we want to do that we haven't been able to. And for accessibility reasons, I want to streamline it a little bit, but we're also going to create some digital archives of some things.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
You guys really get pretty far ahead in terms of what you've got coming. So
we started doing that over the past year or two.
Yeah.
It wasn't always possible before, because a lot of times distributors are like, can you open this Friday? And we'd have to be like, yeah. And I'm like, we have to plan differently. Like, I would love to be able to, Cinematech puts out an awesome, like a wonderful print sort of newspaper about everything coming up.
Yeah.
You know, just wonderful. We're not able to do that.
Right.
But we're somewhere in the middle where, you know, you can know down the pipeline this is coming out.
Well, it's nice. It helps, you know, just, I mean, in planning, you know, if you just see, oh, wow, I've been curious about this movie. It's going to be playing in a month or whatever, then, you know, make a note of that. Yeah. So, we always end up talking about music a little bit, but
throw that in there.
Yeah. And, you have some direct connections with music. And so,
besides music. Huh?
Besides music, yeah.
Right. And so, talk up a little bit about the kind of music that maybe was inspiring to you, that you liked, and then how you ended up with some of the people that are playing music in the local area.
Yeah. Gosh, I grew up, in the 90s, like in the punk scene of the 90s. Pre-internet still. Like, I know it wasn't the 70s, but it was social media and everything.
Yeah.
And it
was a different time.
It was a different time. I used to go to a lot of DIY shows and punk shows in the 90s.
Yeah.
And, into the early 2000s. And then I started working at the Lime Spider. Met my now husband, and just made a ton of friends there. But really, that period in the early 2000s in Akron was sort of a moment that can't be, I guess, it's similar to like the 70s. Like, it's just a moment that happened that, like, you can't bottle. Like, it's not, I think, with the internet and so, like, everything coming out. So, not like it was so much better then, but it really was, like, so different.
Sure.
Then in the early 2000s, at least for, I'm in my mid 40s. And it just was a wonderful period of time. And there were so many great local bands. And I ended up marrying somebody whose band used to play at the Lime Spider, multiple bands.
What is this mystery man's name?
Oh, his name is Gabe Schrey.
Gabe Schrey, okay. I know Gabe. So.
Yeah. I've seen him in several bands over the years.
Yeah, he's very mysterious now. He lays very low, and he's he's on this label out of London, and he just makes this very ambient, mellow music. He's in another group called Lemon Quartet with some of his friends, and they also were on that label. They're headlining Midwinter Tunes at the Akron Art Museum in February, but they really don't do a lot of shows, and Gabe does not play out very often at all.
No, I know that. No.
And his label, like, he has import records that are sold out that, like, I don't even have a copy of. And it's interesting. But I love his music. I'm lucky that the music played in my house is very calm.
Can you get his stuff online, like what you brought in today?
Yeah, so he's on Spotify. If it's fine. He's on Spotify under G.S. Schray, Schray. But he's also on Bandcamp, and there's ways to purchase music and support that. But yeah, there's so much talent here in Akron as far as art and music. There always has been. It's always been this sort of hotbed for creative geniuses.
Absolutely.
And some of them are so quiet and don't brag about themselves. I notice it's so interesting because a lot of my age group, like, they're very humble and quiet about what they have accomplished or do and don't brag about it.
Yeah.
No,
it's very true. Yeah. And the music scene around here is, as you say, the art scene too, and with you guys at the Nightlight, even the cinema world is all pretty kind of thriving right now. There's a lot of interesting stuff happening. Yeah. But I know what you mean about the difference of the late 90s, early 2000s. There was kind of a more of a, and that was definitely the case in the 70s and early 80s, was that there was more of a vibrant scene, like getting out of the house and going places and seeing bands in person, kind of a
clubs,
thing. Right? Whereas now that I think people are, stay home or watch things on their phone or whatever. I
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah. It's kind of different.
Mm-hmm.
But
we're
yeah,
talking.
people should check out Gabe's music. It's very good.
Well, yeah, we're talking a few episodes back. I forget who we were talking with, where when our bands, Bob, the Bizarros, and Unit 5 were playing, Akron was like a bombed out type of a vibe,
Yeah.
It was, but now, the Civic Theater, Lock 3, the Nightlight, there's just a lot of stuff going on. The restaurants, a heck of a U-turn, from the 70s to now.
Right.
I moved up here in 1996. I moved up here from Canton. I was like, I'm moving to the big city, and I moved to Akron.
A bigger
And
city.
yeah, and downtown was like, it's like there's so many one-way streets. The market goes on forever. Like it just in Canton in the 90s was like dismal.
Yeah.
And Akron in the 90s had this thing that I loved, and I just kept coming back. So Akron is, I still have family in Canton, but Akron's my home as far as I'm concerned. I've been here longer. My son, I have a 20-year-old son at the University of Akron. He was raised West Akron, Firestone, goes to the University of Akron.
Right,
Like it just,
Now, when you were working, this is going back in time a little bit, but when you were I don't know what you can say about it, but when you were working, I'm just morbid curiosity.
Yeah.
When you were working at Musica, I always found the booking at Musica to be very odd because there would be seemingly not a whole lot going on, and next thing you know, there'd be like 4 fantastic shows, and often, to be frank about it, it would be like, oh, did you see who's playing? And it was like, really? And then, but it's sold out. And somehow I never heard about it.
Well, that just happened to me and you. You got to go to the Mountain Goats. I didn't even know it existed.
Yeah.
That show was going on.
That was because of you, I think. Yeah. Somebody mentioned it to me by chance.
Yeah.
So again, I don't want you to get in trouble or
I don't
anything,
work
but
there
it's just,
anymore.
it was weird. Like Dinosaur Jr. would play there.
Right.
Or,
So those bigger bands were through an outside promoter
okay.
Oh.
who he does a lot of stuff in Columbus
Okay.
and other venues. So he would bring a lot of the bigger bands. And I can't speak to before or after I was there.
Sure,
but there
yeah.
was this window of time where it just sort of melded together,
Dandy Warhol's played there.
Yeah,
which was a
yeah.
great
So again,
show.
all those were brought through this promoter.
One of my favorite shows. I was proud to say that we opened for the Cloud Nothings.
Oh, they're so good.
They're one of my favorite bands.
They're
we got to
amazing.
open for them. These young. I remember their lead singer wasn't of age to drink.
Yeah.
And he gave his drink ticket to somebody, and the barmaid just yelled at him for.
Yeah. So actually, when I took over, I brought in a whole different bar staff. There was a shift in.
Yeah,
there was a very different shift.
This kid just, I'm not old enough to drink. Here's my ticket. What? You can't do it.
Yeah, there was none of that
Siren went off.
attitude. I wouldn't be able to handle that. One of the favorite things I did there was for George, one of his celebration of life with the Stiff Baiters band.
George
And-
Cabanis.
I was there. I was
yeah, that was one of my.
Yeah,
and I got to meet my friend Teresa Kiriakis, who I'm still good friends with, and
the
really
photographer.
just in Nashville, but it really just was such a wonderful, special night.
Yeah, that
So
was
that's one of my
nice.
favorites.
That was meaningful for all the people who were there, for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that.
I was just curious about how that worked. Because,
Yeah, there was an outside promoter who brought a lot of the national acts.
Yeah.
But to me, how I saw it was my job was to create a space with sort of a built-in audience who could support those. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
not sitting cold other times or
Right.
Right.
Right. I always figured it was like, bands that were playing in Columbus and they had an open day before and then they were going to play like Pittsburgh
and that's
or
what, and
something.
he handled all that. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
There's a guy named Andrew who runs Musica now who's doing a great job.
Okay.
He's good.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm usually in bed by 10 o'clock. I'm just I know. Yeah. Like as far as music venues, like Jilly's, I love Jill so much. And I'm gluten-free, so I love her menu. I feel very lucky that she's there. And she's just a badass and so such a supporter of everybody and everything.
She's helped so many people in Akron.
So many people.
So many bands, musicians.
Yeah.
She actually pays people to play.
I know.
Yeah.
And she just, Yeah, she's awesome. I love blue jazz, but I like quieter. I'm just a quiet person.
Yeah.
I realized once COVID hit, I was like, oh, like it has been really loud for a few years. Like I needed kind of a yeah.
Yeah, it's anyway, that was a little off topic, but I was curious about that. But to get back to the Nightlight, since we're never sure when this is going to play or going to run, I getting like what movies you're going to be showing doesn't really make any difference because we might not run this for a while. Yeah. But how far ahead are you able to plan your bookings?
So right now we know the Oscars are March 10th. So we're planned through the Oscars. We do 2 to 3 weeks of Oscar shorts. So, and we get that through Magnolia. Yeah. So it's the,
that's very popular. People love that.
So you can see the live action, animated, and documentary Oscar shorts. And we do ballots where you can vote for your favorite, check off each one. And that's such a fun thing. So we usually do that through the Oscars. But we have a list of what we know is coming out, what's coming to the festivals. Like we're really, we can't confirm anything because it's always a short notice, but we have our wish list planned out. Of we know this is coming out. Like we know a movie coming out next Christmas that we want. Like we're just waiting to find out in November when we can get it.
Oh,
you know? Yeah.
Yeah, and
it's hard because I'm a planner. I would love to have like 3 months booked and but then we'll get an email and be like, oh, shoot, like that would have been. It's it's like constant moving pieces.
Do sometimes movies, I really don't know the answer to this. There's sometimes the movies kind of come out of nowhere. Yeah. You know, I mean, like, wow, no one had even heard of this. And now all of a sudden it just seems like
that happened
the coolest
last
thing we
year.
could be showing.
Yeah, that happened last year with Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh, okay.
Which we
that
got.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So our distributor, A24, it showed at South by Southwest. We ended up getting it right away a few weeks later, and then it won almost every Oscar.
Yeah.
Like it was just this. It just was wild. You know, nobody expected it, and then it just was this huge, amazing success story.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I can totally see how that was almost like a word of mouth kind of film, right?
Yeah. And the thing I like to stress to people too is like you don't have to be a movie buff or an expert. Like you don't have to know what director did what. Oftentimes I'm like, Anthony, my theater manager, I'm like, what else was that person in? Like you don't have to be an expert on movies. Like just go somewhere and enjoy something different for 2 hours.
Right.
Like you don't have to know who it is or what. Like you don't have to be. It's not pretentious. Like it's kind of this.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a cool thing about the Nightlight. It's literally a theater that you could just say like, I don't know anything about this movie. Yeah. I'm going to go and check it out. And you're going to see something that you would not have seen anywhere else. Yeah. And so, you know, the worst case scenario is you think it stinks, but
that's worst case.
But
that's worst case.
But on the other hand, you never would have seen it otherwise, and you've widened your perspective a bit. Yeah,
we've only had a few walkouts for things. It's it's interesting because I want to do more family programming, but we're not quite there yet. But I hope to with the second screen. So we did like some off-site stuff at House 330 over Christmas break, like free movies for kiddos and families. But really thinking about, I mean, they're just our movies. They're typically adult movies, not in the way that adult movies used to be called that. Let me reword this.
Right, sure.
They're more
we know what you mean.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not like that, but it is like, you know.
But see, there's a need for that, though.
Right.
I mean, when you go to what Nick alluded to earlier, the multiplexes and stuff, they're typically showing, they have, 8 theaters and 4 of them are showing the same Marvel movie and the other 4 are showing a cartoon, or whatever. And they may be fun movies or whatever, but there's not stuff
everywhere.
there for again, an adult audience.
Well, and I keep reading about bad behavior in theaters, and people are like, this person was on their phone the whole time, this other person was talking, and I was like, that doesn't happen here.
Right.
Like, that's not...
I've never seen anything like that there.
That will not happen there. Like, it's not a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it just,
With the expansion, with a second screen, it's going to be. Are you going to like just move some walls, or is it going to be behind where it's at?
It's behind a wall that exists currently. It's adjacent, is what I can say.
Mm-hmm. Is it going to have the same amount of seats?
Bigger.
More?
It's going to be 57 seats, plus 4 wheelchair seats.
Okay,
slots,
nice. Yeah.
Plus a center aisle.
Okay. Oh, yes. Yeah,
I know.
yeah.
I'm so excited about that. Also, one of the most exciting things is that we're adding more restrooms.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which anybody who's been there knows.
Yeah,
that.
it is a thing. Yeah.
So, and my hope is that that screen is up and running. My personal hope is that the screen is up and running by the end of 2024.
Okay, good.
That's my hope.
Yeah. That'd be a nice holiday gift to everybody.
It'd be the best present.
Over the last year or so, I've made it out probably half a dozen times. Apocalypse Now is one of my favorite movies of all time. I think you did an introduction for that one. And I've seen that movie untold times, but I had to see. So is Francis Ford Coppola, apparently, because he keeps recutting it and making new versions of it. But yeah, I love that movie, and it was great to see it there, and the sound was amazing.
The helicopter sounded amazing, whizzing around the theaters.
I always say that Apocalypse Now is a movie that literally could not be made today.
No
one would
not.
insure it.
No.
I mean, because all real
sure.
helicopters, real jets, everything that happens in that movie. There's no way it would all be CGI, and it would not be the same. Not at all.
Yeah.
And then you guys had that fantastic Bowie documentary.
Oh my gosh, Moon Age Daydream.
Yeah.
And then we did Ziggy Stardust and Spiders from Mars. The
Yeah,
concert
that was
film.
cool. Yeah, that you showed both of those. Yeah.
We did a lot of music docs. We partner with the Summit often for that, and we have a few cool things in the works that I can't talk about yet. But we often do Summit member showings.
Yeah.
Where we just...
Yeah, I saw the one on the album cover company.
that was so good. And it is called
Hypnosis.
Hypnosis. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hypnosis. That was a great documentary.
It was wonderful.
Everyone saw it, loved it. I haven't seen it. I liked
it. Was directed by Anton Corbin, who's one of my favorite photographers who did all the Depeche Mode. And,
right, yeah.
So I think it had that special touch to it. But the guys are just funny. And it was great. It was just so interesting and fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was a Summit deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you remember the Summit here, you get some special perks, and one of them is showings at the Nightlight.
Yeah.
So
I'm a Red Guitar member. I love the Summit.
Me too.
Yet another reason to join.
I can't wait to see what you're talking about, the old ads from the 20s.
I have some on my phone. Do you want to see?
Do you by chance have the Royal Theater on Johnson Street?
Let me show you what
I used to go.
I know nobody can see
35-cent
air.
matinees on Saturday. I used to go, but that turned into the Birth.
Oh, okay.
And when we were talking about the Brambles,
the club,
the club.
I bought this at an auction. I collect antiques and ephemera and old, just history. I'm so into.
Me too. I actually found a glass from Tangiers that has every. Sammy Davis Jr. and Phyllis Diller on it.
I love it.
I want to see that next time.
So this, nobody can see this through the microphone, so I'm going to describe it. So I bought this at an auction. It's movie ads from old movie theaters, Akron, Ohio. The photograph album is from 1930s. Oh. This is a handwritten list of theaters in Akron, right? So I'm going to read this for a second.
Yeah, please.
Arcade, 145 and a half South Main Street. Norca, 342 West Market Street, which is where the dealership is now. National, 120 South Main Street. Nixon, 32 East Cuyahoga. Norca, 1097 East Market, which is the Goodyear Theater. Palace, 273 South Main Street. Knickerbocker, 407 East Market. Majestic, 1065 South Main Street. Thornton, 774 South Main Street. Casino at Lakeside Park, later Summit Beach Park. Spicer, 450 East Exchange. Ideal, 244 Worcester Avenue. Colonial, 48 East Mill.
It's beautiful.
These are just some of them, right? So these are all ads from...
Oh, my God, that's...
Yeah, and I have hundreds of them.
Amazing.
And they're all in this book. And then what they did was they documented... they put the date. So Monday, March 8th, 1920 at the Norca Theater, 1097 East Market. One day only. Theda Bara and Kathleen Malvernine, Sunshine Comedy. But this is, I mean, there's just tons of them.
Man,
That's
So
really cool.
that's
Yeah.
a treasure, man.
I'm having this digitally archived.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Nice, good.
So
yeah.
that way we have a digital copy of it, and this will live somewhere because it can't be like handled. It's very, but there's just hundreds of them clipped from the Akron newspaper of original ads from 1917, I think, to 1930. Yeah, it's a treasure. I saw that, and so what I did was I bought it. I have stuff with my money that I'm donating to start the Nightlight collection, the Nightlight archive of Akron film history, including theaters.
Do you know where that is going to be housed yet?
I don't.
Because there's going to be an Akron History
Yeah,
Museum.
I know.
I'm sure they'd love to
Yeah.
get their mitts on that.
Yeah.
I
So
was just amazed by how many theaters were so close to each other. It sounded
There
like. It sounded like there were like eight
were.
or nine theaters on Main Street.
Well, there was no
Yeah.
TV. That
So-
was
Yeah.
where people went.
The one picture, I'm gonna. I wish I could show you this in person. Here's Lon Chaney, Phantom of the Opera, One Day Only. But this one page, here it is. Okay, so let me lock this so I can't turn it. In one day in Akron, this is all the movies that we're showing in one day, right? Today at the movies, Friday, August 6th, 1924. The Allen, 251 South Main Street, Dreamland, National, Orpheum. And it's this list of, I'm going to say 20-something
I was going to
theaters.
say, yeah, for
that you
those
had an
listening,
option.
there's over 20
Yeah.
theaters that are listed there.
So
all with
in one
different
day,
films.
you could have gone to see 20 different movies within a 10-mile radius in
Yeah.
Akron.
Yeah,
And we're it.
you're right. That is a different time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
amazing. And of course,
So-
you always hear those stories about, in between walking 10 miles to school and, shoveling coal and all
Yeah.
the other stuff that people had to do back in those days. But you also always hear these stories about, but then they'd spend all day at the theater,
Yeah.
right, for a nickel or
Yeah.
whatever. And they'd,
Yeah.
walk in and a movie would be half over and they'd watch everything, all the cartoons and short films and another feature. And then eventually it comes back to where they were and they watch the first half of the movie.
That's
and then
what we
leave.
did with Silent
I've heard
Movie
that story
Day.
so many
Yeah,
times.
we just kept it going all day.
Yeah. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's cool that you have that.
Yeah, I can't wait for people to see it.
Yeah.
It's in my office at the theater.
Uh-huh.
That's very
Don't
careful.
tell anybody.
Yeah.
Be a line tomorrow.
So the other thing we're doing is we're having a poster sale coming up because we also have hundreds and hundreds of posters,
No, that sounds cool.
tons of them.
Well, I mean,
Movie posters.
Yeah,
Movie
but
posters.
from your existence, or not
Yeah.
from like the 20s or 30s.
No,
Oh, gotcha.
no, those aren't for sale. We do have a not for sale collection at the Nightlight of ones that we're also digitally archiving for our records. But we have hundreds of them that we're putting on sale, and all proceeds will go to the Nightlight second screen. So that'll be on our website in our store soon.
Okay.
Just for movies we've shown and a couple hundred of them.
Are you just going to price them or is it an
Yeah, like
auction?
$10 minimum donation.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I'll have to have a look at this. Yeah. Let me know when that's
Yeah,
up for
I will.
sure.
No Barbie ones, Bob. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, there are no Bobby. I know you're.
Well, I was thinking Apocalypse Now, actually, but
Oh, I don't know if we got a poster. We didn't get a poster for that.
it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. I'm sure there's some very cool ones there.
Yeah, yeah.
And if my wife is listening to this, I'm sure she's like, "Oh no!"
We're like out of wall space. I don't have movie poster, but I just collect so much that my walls, we have like low ceilings and my walls are out of space
Yeah,
for
yeah.
things.
I can start using those vertical spaces that are all I have left in my house. All the horizontal spaces are filled with books or albums.
I got the coolest thing for Christmas. I got a Goodyear blimp salesman sample of fabrics for the blimp. And it's
Did
a
you?
blue Goodyear blimp.
Yeah.
And you open it up, it's like a fan.
Awesome.
And I thought, of course, to frame it,
Yeah.
and my wife said, you can't put that up there.
Right.
So anyway, I've got to figure out. But isn't that a cool thing?
That's very cool. I've never seen that.
No, it is. Yeah.
I love it.
Watch for Nick to be riding by in his own blimp soon.
I picked the color of the fabric.
For the seats.
If you hear the subtle sounds of the bizarros off in the air somewhere, you'll
Coming
know
out
where
a
it's coming
loudspeaker
from.
from the blimp.
Well, I am Bob Ethington. with my co-host Nick Nicholas. This is From Akron and Beyond. We've been talking with Jenn Kidd, director of the Nightlight Cinema. And this conversation has gone so well that we're kind of running out of time.
Yeah,
I'm starting to realize.
All the fun shows are like that.
Yeah. It's exciting. It's very exciting. So is there anything else you can tell us about? It sounds like your future plans are fantastic. You've probably covered it all, but is there anything else that comes to mind that you'd like to share about,
We're just excited. We're doing an event at the Akron Civic in February. I don't know if this will play by then, but if not, either way. We're showing Clueless from the 1990s at the Civic on Valentine's Day weekend. So we're doing like the movie, a dance party on the stage afterwards, but just more of this. Like movies don't have to be, they can be so many things.
We recently had Howard Parr here interviewing him.
Yeah. Howard's great.
Oh, my God, yeah.
I bet he has stories.
A great story. The Civic still exists due to him.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
100%. Howard's great. But yeah, just so much stuff coming up. Our website is www.nightlightcinema.com. And yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Well, sure. Yeah, what I've learned is that I was well aware of how awesome the Nightlight Cinema is downtown. What's the actual address? I keep alluding.
30 North High Street. We're right next to Akron Coffee Roasters.
Okay, yeah. So there's plenty of parking, and in the evenings or weekends, free parking. So that's no excuse, and to not go. And then, but as wonderful as the Nightlight Cinema is in and of itself, you guys are really doing a lot of cooperating work with other agencies and businesses and stuff in the area. So that's really great because that spreads knowledge of what you're doing and helps these other places out as well. So that's
support each other.
Really
that's great.
That's right.
Yeah.
Support each other.
Yeah, that's terrific. So really, we have maybe the music scene is having its challenges, but the movie scene's getting stronger than ever. Right?
Beautiful.
It is doing well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Jenn Kidd.
Thank you so much.
Director of the Nightlight Cinema. This has been From Akron and Beyond, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.